My name is Captain Celine Frost, and for 7 years I have been the shield in the shadows for Alpha King Kalen. 7 years of silence, 7 years of watching him rule with the strength that made our kingdom unbreakable, and 7 years of burying a feeling deep in my heart that threatened to crack my iron control every time he smiled. My duty was my identity. I was the silent blade, the ghost of the royal guard who had ended 32 threats to his life before they ever reached his chambers. My feelings were a luxury a warrior sworn to his protection could not afford. But there was one vulnerability even I could not armor: his 5-year-old daughter, Princess Ilara. With her mother, the late Luna, gone, Ilara was the light of the palace, and her tiny hand slipping into mine during state functions was the only thing that ever made my stern composure falter. The morning of the Continental Gathering, a summit of all the great packs, the king's usual command was different. His steel blue eyes, usually so sure, held a flicker of raw fear. "Captain Frost," he said, his voice low, "today you guard Ilara. Close protection. Your post is with her." "Your Majesty," I began to protest. My place was always at his side. He cut me off. "The intelligence is clear. The threat is against her. I need my very best. I need you to keep her safe." The weight in his voice, the use of "you," not as a title but as a plea, settled my protests. "Understood, Your Majesty." The gathering was held at the ancient Sunstone Citadel, where ancient law forbade violence. It was the perfect place for a truce, and therefore the perfect place for those who spit on tradition. I stayed at Ilara's side, a silent, watchful shadow as she shyly clung to my leg. I knelt, bringing myself to her level. "I am right here, little star. No one will touch you while I draw breath. I promise." Her eyes, mirrors of her father's, looked up with absolute trust. "You promise for real?" "I promise for real," I said, the vow etching itself into my soul. The attack came like a sudden storm at the afternoon reception. A server's tray clattered. My warrior's instinct screamed a millisecond before I saw them. 4 men in servant's livery raising compact crossbows. Their aim was not the king. It was the small figure by the dessert table, reaching for a honey cake. 15 feet, an impossible distance, but my body moved before my mind could command it. Wolf-gifted speed turned the air into a blur. I reached her, my body a desperate shield as I spun. The first bolt slammed into my shoulder with a sickening thud. The impact stole my breath. The second punched into my side. Agony, white-hot and brutal. I didn't fall. I wrapped myself tighter around Ilara. The third bolt hit my back, the fourth my thigh. The world narrowed to pain and the precious trembling life in my arms. Chaos erupted, roars, screams, the clash of steel, but all I saw was Ilara's tear-streaked face looking up at me. "Celine, you're bleeding," she whispered, her small fingers touching my cheek. "It's all right," I managed, my voice a ragged whisper. "You're safe. That's all that matters." Then he was there, King Kalen, his face pale with a horror I'd never seen. He dropped to his knees before us. "Celine, what have you done?" I met his gaze, the world starting to tunnel into darkness at the edges. "My duty, Your Majesty." My legs, finally betraying me, buckled. He caught me before I hit the ground, arrows and all, gathering me into arms that trembled. "Healers, now!" His roar shook the hall. He carried me as if I were made of glass, Ilara running beside us, sobbing. "Papa, is Celine going to be okay? She saved me." "I know, my heart, I know." His voice was rough as he looked down at me. "Stay with me, Celine. That is an order." A weak smile touched my lips. "Always obey your commands." And then the world went black. I woke to the sound of desperate voices arguing through a thick haze of pain. Every breath was fire, every heartbeat a drum of agony. Nightshade venom, Your Majesty. Rare, expensive, and almost always fatal. We can slow it, but we cannot stop it. Captain Frost has hours, maybe 2 days before it reaches her heart. A heavy silence followed, then the king's voice, dangerously quiet. There must be something. An older female voice, heavy with reluctance, spoke. The mate bond. If she had a fated mate, completing the bond would split the poison between them. They would both be gravely ill, but they would live. Then find her mate, the king commanded, a king's order. Your Majesty, if she had a fated mate, she would know. She is 30. The bond would have called to her by now. And even a chosen bond, a marriage of convenience, would not be strong enough. Only a fated bond can split Nightshade. The silence that fell was suffocating, final. I lay there, listening to my death sentence with a strange detachment. I had always known I would die in service. This was acceptable. I had saved Ilara. Then a small, broken voice cut through the dark. Papa, is Selene going to die like Mama did? The sound Kaelin made was not human. It was the raw sound of a heart breaking all over again. No, my darling, no. Selene is strong. We will save her. The healer said, the healer is wrong, he said firm, but I heard the terror underneath. She saved you. I will save her, whatever it takes. The older healer spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. Your Majesty, there is one other possibility, but it is not for me to suggest. Speak. You are unmated. You are an alpha king. Your power, your potential bond would be immensely strong. A chosen bond with you might be strong enough to split the venom even without a fated connection. It could save her. A chosen bond, Kaelin repeated slowly, with my captain. It would mean marriage, Your Majesty, a permanent, unbreakable mate bond. She would become Luna, and there is no guarantee. If it fails, the bond might not hold the poison. You both could die. Or she could live, Kaelin said without a moment's hesitation. Your Majesty, you cannot, another voice protested. Captain Frost is a guard, a soldier. She is not suited to be Luna. She threw herself in front of 4 poisoned arrows for my child. Kaelin's voice was like shattering ice, cold and sharp. She has been my most loyal protector for 7 years. She is courage and honor given flesh. Tell me, what part of that is unsuited to be Luna? Silence. I will do it, Kaelin declared. I will bond with her. Prepare what is needed. Your Majesty, she cannot consent. Then we wait until she awakes, and the moment she's conscious, we give her the choice. Live and become my Luna, or die and leave Ilara without the woman who gave everything for her. His words pierced the fog of poison in my veins. No, I screamed inside my silent, broken body. You cannot chain yourself to me. You are the king. You deserve a true Luna, a fated love, not a broken soldier sacrificing for duty. But the darkness was pulling me under again, a cold, welcoming tide. My last thought was a prayer. Don't let him do this. Don't let him ruin his life for mine. Fate, it seemed, was not listening. Consciousness returned as a slow, painful tide. I was burning from the inside out, every nerve singing with the poison's cruel fire. But through the agony, a warm, solid presence anchored me. I forced my eyes open. King Kaelin sat in a chair pulled close to my bedside, his head bowed in exhausted sleep. In his lap, curled like a small fox, slept Princess Ilara. The sight of them together, safe, was a balm sharper than any healer's tonic. A soft sound escaped my raw throat. His eyes flew open instantly, the steel blue gaze finding mine. Relief, profound and staggering, washed over his features. Selene, he breathed, the word a prayer. Thank the moon. How do you feel? Like I lost an argument with 4 crossbows, I rasped, attempting a smile that felt more like a grimace. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Alara is unharmed, not a scratch, thanks to you. I nodded, the movement sending fresh pain through my shoulder. My job, Your Majesty. Celine, he said, his voice dropping, losing all formality. You heard the healers. It wasn't a question. I heard. Then you know the choice. He leaned forward, careful not to disturb Alara. A mate bonds with me. It is the only thread that can pull you back from this. You cannot, I whispered, desperation giving me strength. Your Majesty, this is a madness. You are binding your life, your reign, to a soldier out of pity. You deserve a true mate, a queen born for the role, not me. Do not tell me what I deserve. The command was quiet but absolute, his alpha power humming in the air between us. For 7 years, I have watched you. I have seen you stand guard in blizzards without complaint. I saw you spend 3 nights reading storybooks to Alara when she was ill because her nanny was afraid. I watched you disarm an assassin with a dinner knife and then apologize to the host for the disruption. His eyes held mine, unwavering. You think this is pity? This is recognition. You saved my heart, Celine, the heart that beats outside my chest in the form of my daughter. Let me save you, not as your king. Let me try as Kaelin. The use of his name, stripped of title, disarmed me more completely than any blade. Tears I had not shed from the arrow's pain now pricked my eyes. If I say yes, I said, each word a struggle, you must know something. I have served you for 7 years. In all that time, it has been my greatest honor. But if we do this, you need to know that my loyalty, my feelings, have not been purely professional for a very long time. If we bond, you will not be tied to someone indifferent. You will be tied to a woman who has loved you silently for years and was too afraid of overstepping to ever show it. I braced for his shock, his polite dismissal. Instead, his expression softened into something that looked like aching relief. Celine, he said, his voice rough, the truth is, I noticed you the day you bested my former captain in the trials. I noticed the quiet precision in your movements. I noticed the extra reports you left on my desk when I knew you'd worked through dinner. I noticed the way you smiled at Alara when you thought no one was looking, a smile so different from your warrior's mask. And I noticed 2 years ago at the Winter Feast when you laughed at a joke and I felt a stab of jealousy toward the beta who told it. He reached out, his hand covering mine where it lay on the blanket. So yes, let us bond, not as king and guard, but as 2 people who have been circling a truth we thought was forbidden. Let us save your life and discover what this path holds. What do you say, Captain? Through the pain and the poison, I saw it. Not a cage of duty, but a door to a future I had never dared envision. A partner, a family, a love that might in time become real. Alara stirred in his lap, her sleepy eyes opening and finding mine. Yes, I whispered, the word carrying the weight of my heart. Yes, I will bond with you. The relief that swept over him was a tangible force. Then we do it now, before the poison claims another inch. The ceremony was a stark, simple affair in the healing ward. No grand hall, no finery, just the essential, ancient words, the healers standing by as witnesses. Kaelin marked my neck, his bite gentle despite its significance. As his teeth pierced my skin, a shock wave, not of pain, but of connection, slammed through me. I gasped as a flood of emotions that were not my own filled me. His fierce protectiveness, his profound relief, a deep-seated affection, and beneath it all, the glowing ember of a love waiting to be kindled. Then it was my turn. I marked him, completing the circle. The moment my teeth retracted, the burning poison in my veins shifted. It was as if a searing weight was lifted, divided, and sent flowing down the new bond between us. I cried out as some of the agony left me. Kalen grunted, his face paling, his grip on my hand tightening like a vice. But he did not pull away. "It's working," the elder healer breathed. "The bond is holding, the venom splitting." Kalen's eyes met mine, filled with shared pain and undeniable triumph. We were now bound, for better or worse, in life and in sickness. Alara, who had watched with wide, solemn eyes, crept forward. "Papa, does this mean Celine is my mama now?" Kalen looked at me, leaving the answer in my eyes. My heart swelled. I held out my good arm. "If you will have me, little star." She launched herself onto the bed with careful grace, wrapping her small arms around my neck. "I wished on the moon for you to be my mama," she whispered against my skin. Through the newborn, fragile bond, I felt Kalen's surge of emotion, gratitude, joy, and a deep-seated hope that threatened to eclipse the lingering poison. We had saved each other. Now we had to learn how to be a family. But as the healers fussed over us, as Alara chattered about teaching her new mama how to braid hair, a cold knot formed in my gut, a warrior's instinct that had never failed me. The assassins who had come for Alara were not random. They were a message, and messages like that always came with the sender who was not finished. The battle for my life was over. The war for our future was just beginning. Recovery was a battlefield of a different sort. For 3 days, Kalen and I lay in adjoining beds, our bodies waging a slow, grueling war against the haft's poison. The mate bond was a constant humming presence in my chest, a conduit not just for shared pain, but of whispered strength. I felt his determination bolster my own, and in turn, I sent back pulses of my stubborn will to survive. It was during a quiet moment on the second night that he said, "You must stop calling me your majesty, Celine. We are bound. My name is Kalen." "You are still my king," I protested weakly. "And you are my Luna," he countered, his voice firm, even through his fatigue. "Which means you now outrank the captain you once were. You will have to get used to it." Through the bond, I felt his gentle amusement, tinged with an affection that warmed me more than any blanket. "How do you do it?" I asked. "Rule a kingdom, be a father, face down threats. I was just your guard. That was exhausting enough." "You were never just anything," he said, turning his head to look at me. "You were exceptional. 7 years, Celine. 7 years of you anticipating dangers I never saw, of keeping Ilara safe when my back was turned. Do you know how many attempts on my life you stopped that I was blissfully unaware of?" 32, I murmured. "It was your calling," he corrected softly. "Most guards do it for status. You did it because you care. I saw it in the way you triple-checked the gardens before letting Ilara play, in the way you would stand outside my door all night during high alert, even when your shift was over." "You noticed that?" "I noticed everything about you," he admitted, the sincerity flowing through our bond. "The way you adjust your sword belt before patrol, the way your eyes scan a room, always calculating, the way you smile at Ilara, that soft, secret smile that belongs only to her." I felt a blush heat my cheeks, grateful for the dim light. Before I could form a reply, the door creaked open and Ilara slipped in, having once again evaded her nanny. Her face lit up seeing us both awake. "Mama Celine! Papa! You're both here!" The title Mama, spoken with such easy love, stole my breath. She climbed onto the bed between us, snuggling against my side. "Does it still hurt?" I said. "A little less every day, and your papa is getting better too." "Because you're mates now," she announced with the wisdom of a child. Nanny said mates share everything, even the hurties, so you both got a little hurt instead of you getting all the hurt. Exactly right, my clever star, Kaelin said, pride coloring his voice. She looked between us, her expression suddenly serious. Papa, does this mean we're a real family now, with a mama and a papa and me? Through the bond, I felt the complex wave of Kaelin's emotion, the old grief for her lost Luna, and the new, tentative hope for what we were building. Yes, my heart, he said, his voice thick. We are a real family now. Good, Elara declared, snuggling deeper. I wanted a mama who was brave, and you're the bravest. The following week, as our strength returned, the real world intruded. I was now Luna, a fact that sent ripples of scandal and strategy through the court. The protocol masters were aghast, the nobles gossiped, the council schemed. Half the court thinks I've lost my mind, Kaelin told me, as we took our first slow walk in the private gardens. The other half is trying to figure out how to use our bond to their advantage. Should I apologize for upending several centuries of tradition? I asked dryly. You should prepare for your coronation, a proper, public ceremony, so every pack in the nation sees that you are not just my mate by necessity, you are their Luna by right. The word coronation sent a bolt of pure terror through me. Kaelin, I don't know how to be a queen. I know how to fight. I know patrol routes and threat assessment. I don't know state dinners or diplomatic nuance. You know leadership, he said firmly. You know protecting your people. You know making hard decisions. And Celine, you are already excellent at all of that. He stopped walking and turned to face me. Who says a Luna cannot be a warrior? You are not replacing who you are. You are expanding it. A Luna who is also the realm's best protector sends a very clear message. This kingdom is strong. It is defended. His faith was a shield, but it couldn't block out the political reality. That reality arrived in the form of Kaelin's beta, Ronan, his expression grim. Your Majesties, he said, bowing to both of us, a gesture that still felt foreign. The investigation into the assassins is complete. They were hired by Lord Oren. My blood ran cold. Lord Oren was a regional governor, a man who had always smiled too widely at court. He has been embezzling from the royal treasury for years, Ronan continued. It seems Princess Elara, during a tour of the treasury, innocently mentioned seeing his name on many papers. She was just being a curious child, repeating what she had heard. But Lord Oren panicked. He thought she had seen evidence and might speak of it, so he tried to silence a 5-year-old. The rage that boiled in me was pure and fiery. To protect his greed, he ordered the murder of a child? He has been arrested, Ronan assured me, but the investigation uncovered something larger. Lord Oren was not working alone. There's a network, a cabal of nobles who have been stealing from and undermining your rule, Your Majesty. They call themselves the Silenced Court. The name was a dark whisper in the sunny garden. How long? Kaelin asked, his voice vibrating with contained fury. At least 6 years, possibly longer. They're careful, but they have stolen millions, and their ultimate goal is not just wealth, it is to overthrow you and install a puppet from among their ranks. Ronan handed Kaelin a dossier. Kaelin opened it, his face growing stonier with each page. 17 names, he finally said. Some of the most powerful families in the realm. If we move against them all at once, I said, my tactical mind engaging, we risk civil war. But if we do nothing, they will try again. Next time, they might not fail. Exactly, Ronan said, looking at me with a new, respectful intensity. Your Majesty, your insight is needed. We must root them out, but strategically. I looked at the list, my old instincts surging. We need evidence, irrefutable proof that links all 17. Then we strike simultaneously, arrest them in a single sweep so none can flee or warn the others. That will take time, Ronan warned. Weeks, perhaps months of covert work. Then we take the time, Kaelin said. But Celine is right. We do this with proof that will stand before the entire kingdom.
In the meantime, he looked at me, we protect Ilara. I want her security doubled, I said immediately. No new one near her, and I want to return to active duty, not just as Luna, but as the head of her personal guard. I will restructure it with people we can trust, absolutely. Celine, you're still recovering, Kaylin started. Which means I survived Nightshade venom, I countered. I am still the best warrior in this kingdom, and now I am also Luna. Let me rebuild the guard. Let me protect our family actively. Through the bond, he felt my fierce determination. Finally, he nodded. But you must also be present as Luna. The coronation, the council meetings, you must be both.
I took his hand. I protected you for 7 years while commanding 200 warriors. I believe I can balance being both your mate and your chief of security. He brought my hand to his lips. Our security chief. We face this together. As we walked back to the palace, a united front, the shadow of the silenced court loomed over us. The coronation was in 2 days. It would be the largest gathering of alphas in a generation. And I knew, with the certainty of a soldier who has smelled ambush too many times, that our enemies would not let such an opportunity pass. The crown they sought to steal would be placed upon my head in front of them all. It was the perfect stage for their next move. The morning of my coronation, a strange calm settled over me. The elaborate silver and white gown lay over a chair, beautiful but feeling like a costume. Underneath, I had already donned my supple fighting leathers. A queen could be crowned, but a warrior must always be ready. Eldra, the head healer who had saved my life, found me staring at the gown. You look like you're preparing for an execution, not a coronation. Most new queens are terrified, I said, but most were raised for this. I was raised to stop coronations from being interrupted by bloodshed. Sometimes the skills overlap, Eldra said dryly, helping me into the heavy gown. It settled over my leathers, the weight symbolic. You will be a fine queen, Celine. You already are. The throne room was a sea of faces, 1,000 wolves from every corner of the nation watching my every step. I walked the long aisle, my back straight, my gaze ahead, falling into the disciplined march of a soldier on parade. At the end, Ilara stood beaming beside the throne, a tiny crown on her curls. Her smile was my anchor. The ceremony was ancient, the words heavy with history. Kaylin presented me to the assembly, his voice ringing with pride. Then came the oaths. I placed my hand on the sacred moonstone. I, Celine Frost, accept the mantle of Luna, I declared, my voice clear and carrying to the far walls. I swear to protect our people, all our people, highborn and low. I swear to uphold justice, to defend the innocent, and to meet any threat to this realm with every strength I possess. I am a warrior, and I am your queen. I will be both without apology. A murmur swept the crowd. Shock, approval, disdain. Kaylin's smile was pure pride as he lifted the delicate platinum crown. It was lighter than my sword, yet infinitely heavier. As he placed it on my brow, he leaned close. My Luna, my mate, my equal. Through our bond, his love and certainty flooded me, a solid rock in the turbulent sea of politics. But as the formalities ended and nobles began to approach, my old instincts prickled. A warning, faint but persistent. My eyes scanned the crowd and locked onto a group near the east entrance. 5 nobles, their expressions too carefully neutral. Kaylin, I sent through our bond. East entrance, 5 nobles. They are planning something. Are you certain? His thought was calm, but I felt his focus sharpen. I have been reading threats for 15 years. I am certain. Before he could respond, one of them stepped forward. Lord Garvin, a hulking alpha of Moor from the mountainous northern reach. Your Majesty, he boomed, addressing Kaylin with a smile that didn't reach his eyes.
Forgive the interruption on this joyous day, but questions must be addressed regarding the new Luna's suitability. What questions? Kaelin's voice was cold. Of Queen Celine's lineage, her training, Garvin said smoothly. We all respect her service as a soldier, but a Luna must be more. She must have noble blood, political acumen, the ability to take 4 poisoned arrows meant for my daughter, the ability to survive nightshade venom, to command the respect of every warrior in the royal guard while mastering statecraft in weeks. Of course, we are grateful for the Queen's sacrifice, but such a hasty bonding, elevating a common soldier, it sets a dangerous precedent. What if every guard expects a royal marriage as a reward for duty? The insult was blatant. Through our bond, I felt Kaelin's fury ignite. I sent a pulse of calm. Let me handle this. I must defend my own crown. I stepped forward, the crowd falling silent. You are right, Lord Garden, I said, my voice ringing. I am common-born. I have no noble name, no political dynasty. I earned my place through blood, sweat, and sacrifice, not an accident of birth. Then you admit you are unsuitable, Garvin pounced. I admit nothing of the sort, I said. A sharp smile touched my lips. I am saying that perhaps it is time the crown was worn by someone who understands what it means to earn their place, who knows the lives of the majority of our people, the soldiers, the farmers, the builders. But tradition also says a queen proves her worth through strength. I let my gaze sweep over the hostile nobles. So I offer you this. You question my right to this crown. Challenge me. Here. Now. If you can defeat me in combat, I will abdicate. If I win, you and all who whisper will pledge your loyalty without further dissent. Gasps echoed through the hall. A public duel at a coronation was unheard of. You cannot be serious, sputtered Garvin. Your Majesty, you are barely recovered. I am strong enough to defend my crown, unless you are afraid. After all, if I am as weak as you claim, defeating me should be simple. He was trapped. Refusal meant cowardice. Acceptance meant risking humiliation. His face darkened. Very well, he growled. I accept. The throne room was swiftly transformed into an impromptu arena. I removed the coronation gown, revealing the warrior beneath. The crowd's murmur grew. Garvin shifted first, an enormous, shaggy brown wolf with vicious tusks. I shifted into my smaller, sleek silver form, built for speed and precision. He charged immediately, a battering ram of muscle and rage. I dodged, letting him pass, my claws scoring a line along his flank. He roared, swinging his massive head. I danced back, then darted in, landing another swift strike. He was powerful, but low. I was a ghost, a blade of moonlight. Within minutes, he was bleeding from a dozen shallow cuts, his breath coming in ragged pants. With a final, fluid movement, I slipped past his guard and locked my jaw at his throat in a clear submission hold. Yield, I sent through the public pack link. You were playing with me, he sent back stunned. Yes, I confirmed. I wanted everyone to see that even recovering, even giving you every advantage, I am still your queen. Now, yield. I yield.
The submission broadcast to every wolf in the room. I released him and shifted back, accepting a robe. The throne room was utterly silent for 3 heartbeats. Then applause erupted, starting from the guards at the back and sweeping through the hall. It was respect, born not of birthright, but of proven strength. Kaelin's pride through our bond was a blazing sun. Anyone else? I asked, looking at the nobles who had stood with Garvin. They looked away. But as the celebration resumed, Ronan appeared at my side, his face grim. Your Majesties, during the fight, 3 of the nobles on the silenced court list slipped away. We've lost them. My triumph curdled. Alara? With her nanny in the royal quarters. Guards are en route. But a cold dread was already coiling in my stomach. Kaelin and I exchanged a look and moved as one, breaking into a run through the palace corridors. We burst into the royal family chambers. The nanny lay unconscious on the floor. Alara was gone. On her small bed lay a note, the paper stained with what looked like berry juice, but the scent was metallic, blood. Want your pup back? Midnight, the ruins of the old watch. Come alone or she dies. Through our bond, Kaylin's terror was a silent scream. It's a trap, I said, my voice eerily calm as my warrior mind took over. They want us to lure out to kill us. With us gone and Alara orphaned, they'd install a regent, one of their own. I don't care, Kaylin's control shattered. That's my daughter, our daughter. We will get her back, I said, gripping his arms. But we do not walk into their trap. We bring the trap to them. I turned to Ronan, who had followed us. Gather every loyal warrior. We surround the old watch. We go not as two grieving parents, but as a king and queen with an army. And Ronan, tonight we end the silenced court, for good. The old watch was a skeletal silhouette against the moonlit sky, a crumbling fortress from a forgotten war. The perfect place for an ambush, which is why I spent the hours before midnight preparing for one. Your Majesty, the warriors are in position, Ronan reported, as the moon reached its zenith. 50 of our best surrounding the ruins. None of the silenced court will escape. Good, I said, checking the straps on my leather armor. My twin short swords were at my hips, throwing knives tucked into my boots. I looked every inch of the warrior I had always been, the delicate platinum crown left behind in the palace. Kaylin armed himself beside me, his expression a mask of alpha fury, barely held in check. Through our bond, I felt the storm of his emotions, rage, fear, a father's desperate love. Kaylin, I said quietly, turning to him, when we go in there, you must let me lead. Your instinct will be to run to Alara. That is what they expect. They will use your love against you. She is my child, he growled, his eyes flashing wolf gold. How can I not? Because you are also the Alpha King, I said, my voice softening but no less firm. And because you have a mate who has planned and executed tactical raids for 15 years. Trust me, I will bring our daughter home. I felt his internal struggle through the bond, the war between the father and the monarch. Finally, he gave a sharp nod. Together. We do this together, but I will follow your lead. We approached the ruins as instructed, visibly alone, while our army melted into the forest shadows. The central courtyard was lit by flickering torches, casting long, dancing shadows. 5 figures stood in the center. I recognized them from the list, Lords Garvin, Oren, and 3 others. And between them, small and bound but standing defiantly, was Alara. My heart clenched, but my face remained impassive. Your Majesties, Lord Garvin called, his voice echoing in the stone ruins. How obedient of you to come. Where are the other 12? I asked, my voice cold and clear. Your little club had 17 members. I only count 5. Lady Beatrice smiled, a cruel twist of her lips. The others are elsewhere, preparing the transition of power. You see, the Silvermane dynasty has ruled too long. It is time for new blood. New blood that steals from the treasury and murders children? Kaylin's voice was low, but it vibrated with an alpha command that made the torches gutter. That is your vision? Better than being ruled by a common-born soldier playing queen, Garvin spat, looking at me with pure hatred. You humiliated me today. Did you think there would be no consequence? I expected you to be smarter than this, I said, scanning the shadows. Kidnapping the heir isn't politics, it's desperation. You've lost, Garvin. You just don't know it yet. We have your daughter! Beatrice shrieked. We have the upper hand. You will both abdicate, sign the papers naming Garvin as regent, and then you will have a tragic accident. Refuse, and the princess dies tonight. As if on cue, one of the nobles drew a silver dagger and held it to Alara's throat. She didn't whimper. She stared straight at me, her gray eyes wide, but filled with a trust so absolute it was a physical weight. "All right," I said, raising my hands slightly in a placating gesture. "Let me discuss terms. But first, I need proof Alara is unharmed. Let me see her." "You get nowhere near the—" Beatrice's words cut off in a sharp cry as an arrow whistled from the darkness and struck the knife wielder squarely in the hand. The dagger clattered to the stone. Chaos exploded. Our 50 warriors poured from every archway and broken wall, engaging the silenced court members. But more figures emerged from the ruins' depths, the missing 12 conspirators. All 17 were here, just as I'd hoped. They shifted to wolf form in a chorus of snarls and cracking bones. But Alara was no longer by them. In the split second of confusion, I had moved with my full wolf-enhanced speed, grabbing her and rolling behind a fallen column. "Stay down, little star," I whispered, slicing her bonds with a claw. I pushed her toward Ronan, who materialized from the shadows. "Protect her!" Then I shifted. My silver wolf met the charge of a massive, onyx black wolf, Lord Orin. The battle was fierce. The conspirators were powerful, but our warriors were prepared, fighting in coordinated units. Kaelin was a whirlwind of golden fur and fury beside me. Our mate bond sang between us, allowing us to fight as one entity. "Behind you! Left flank!" His warning came a second before the attack, and I spun, my jaws meeting the throat of a wolf lunging for him. "Duck!" I sent, and he dropped as I leapt over him to tackle another. We were a storm of teeth and claws, defending our family, our kingdom. Within 20 minutes, it was over. 10 conspirators lay dead. The remaining 7, including a wounded Garvin and a sobbing Beatrice, were subdued and shackled with silver. I shifted back, immediately scanning for Alara. She ran from Ronan's side and crashed into my legs. I knelt, holding her tight. "You're safe. Mama's here." "I knew you'd come," she whispered into my neck. Kaelin joined us, wrapping us both in his strong arms. Through the bond, his relief was a tidal wave. "It's over," he murmured. "The silenced court is finished." "Not quite," Ronan said, his expression troubled. "Your Majesties, we've accounted for only 16. Lord Orin is not among the dead or captured." A cold dread, sharper than any blade, sliced through me. If Orin, the master of finances, the one who started it all, was not here. The answer came as a distant, thunderous boom echoed across the mountains, and the horizon toward the palace lit up with an ominous orange glow. "The palace," Kaelin breathed in horror. It was a diversion within a diversion, I realized, ice filling my veins. They knew we'd figure out the old watch. They knew we'd bring our forces here. Orin is attacking the palace while we're spread thin, while it's filled with celebrating nobles and vulnerable. "We have to go back," Kaelin said. "Now." "Go," I told him. "Take half the warriors, get back fast. I'll secure the prisoners here and follow with Alara and the West." "I'm not leaving you." "You are the Alpha King. Your people need to see you defending them. And Kaelin, I am still the deadliest warrior in this kingdom. I can handle prisoners. Go, save our people." Through the bond, I poured every ounce of my certainty into him. He kissed me, hard and desperate. "I love you. Be safe." Then he shifted and was gone, a streak of gold leading warriors back toward the distant fire. I turned to organize the prisoner transport, my mind already calculating the fastest route back, but Alara tugged on my torn sleeve. "Mama," she said, her small voice trembling. "Something's wrong." "What is it, my heart?" "I can feel it," she whispered, her eyes going distant. "Something bad. Not at the palace. Here." My instincts screamed. I spun around. Lord Orin stepped from the shadow of the broken keep. He wasn't alone. 20 wolves smelling of rogue packs and bearing fresh silver weapons flanked him. "Did you really think I'd be at the palace?" Orin asked, his voice a silken, hateful thing. No, my queen, I've been here all along, waiting for you to be vulnerable. He smiled, a predator's grin. And now that you are, I'm going to finish what those arrows started. The 20 rogues formed a half-circle, cutting off our retreat. My warriors, only 25 now, the rest gone with Kaelin, closed ranks around the prisoners and Alara. The numbers were impossible. Oren had planned this perfectly. You know, Oren mused, circling just outside sword range, everyone speaks of your legend, Captain, the silent blade, the queen who fought her way to the crown. His cold eyes raked over me. And yet here you stand, wounded, exhausted, trying to protect everyone. That's your fatal flaw. You care. Caring is what separates a ruler from a monster like you, I shot back, my hands resting on my sword hilts. My mind raced through tactics, through angles of attack and defense. There were none that ended in catastrophe. How poetic, he mocked. Then his voice hardened. Kill them. Leave the queen and the pup for me. The rogues charged. My warriors met them with a roar, steel clashing against steel. The courtyard became a whirlwind of violence. I fought at the front, my twin swords extensions of my will. For every rogue I cut down, 2 more seemed to take his place. I felt a blade graze my ribs, a claw rake my thigh. The old arrow wounds screamed in protest. Through the mate bond, I felt a surge of panic from Kaelin. He had received my frantic mental warning about the trap, felt my new injuries. He was turning back, but he was too far away. "Mama!" Alara's scream pierced the din. A rogue had broken through our crumbling line, silver claws aimed at her heart, where she huddled with Ronan. There was no thought. Only instinct. I threw myself across the chaos, placing my body between the killing strike and my daughter. Silver claws ripped across my already wounded shoulder. White-hot agony blinded me for a second, but my own blade found the rogue's heart. He fell. "Celine!" Ronan's voice was desperate. "Your shoulder!" "Hold the line!" I gasped, blood soaking through my leathers. Oren had seen his opening. He shifted in a blur of dark fur, a massive, sleek wolf the color of a starless night. He charged as I was weakened, his full weight slamming into me. We crashed to the stone, a tangle of fangs and fury. He was bigger, stronger, and I was bleeding from too many places. He got his jaws around my throat, not biting down yet, but holding me in a death grip. "I could end you now," his mental voice slithered through the mental link all wolves shared. "But that's too quick. I want to watch as I kill your warriors, execute the prisoners, and then take that precious pup you sacrificed everything for. I want you to die knowing you failed." Through the mate bond, I felt Kaelin's absolute terror, his wolf screaming through the forest, running faster than ever, but he was still minutes away. Too many minutes. "Do it," I sent back to Oren, my mental voice steady. "But you should know something. I'm not the only deadly one in my family." Before Oren could process my words, a small figure stepped out from behind Ronan's protective stance. Alara, my 5-year-old daughter, her face pale but her small jaw set. She walked calmly toward the massive wolf holding her mother captive. "Let my mama go." Her voice was small, but it carried. It didn't just carry, it commanded. A power, ancient and immense, radiated from her tiny frame. The air very stilled. Every wolf in the courtyard, friend and foe, froze. It was Luna power, the rare, sovereign gift to command the will of other wolves, a power that shouldn't manifest until adolescence at the earliest. "Impossible," Oren snarled mentally. I said, "Let her go," Alara repeated, and this time her eyes glowed with a soft silver light. The command was undeniable, woven with an authority that came from the moon itself.
Oren's body shuddered. Against his will, his jaws opened. He released me and took a stumbling step back, fighting the compulsion with every ounce of his will, but unable to overcome it. I shifted back, coughing, my hand flying to my bleeding throat. "Ilara, sweetheart, I need to protect my family." she interrupted, her voice still echoing with that unearthly power. She looked at all the rogues. "Stop fighting. All of you. Stop and submit." One by one, as if their strings had been cut, the rogues shifted back to human form and dropped to their knees. It wasn't a choice. It was a decree. Orin, back in human form now, stared at her in pure, unadulterated horror. "You're a child. Luna power doesn't. This is impossible." "My mama was dying," Ilara said simply, the glow fading from her eyes as she ran to me. The power receded, leaving behind a trembling, frightened little girl. "Mama, are you okay?" I pulled her into my arms, ignoring the fire in my own body. "I'm okay, my brave, brave girl. You saved me. You saved all of us." Through the bond, I felt Kalen burst into the clearing at the head of his warriors, felt his shock and awe at the scene before him. Rogues kneeling, his daughter clutched in my arms, power still humming in the air. He shifted and ran to us, gathering us both against him. "Ilara, how?" "Her Luna power manifested early to protect us. Kalen, she's incredibly strong." "I'm scared," Ilara whispered into my neck. "My wolf is so big inside me. It's loud." "You will learn to control it," Kalen promised, his voice reverent. "We will teach you. But what you did, my heart, you were so brave." "I learned from Mama," she said, looking at me with those trusting eyes. "She takes arrows for people. I had to help." As our warriors secured the kneeling rogues and Orin, a new fear, cold and tactical, cut through my relief. The palace explosion was a fake. The attack here was the real assault. But what was the goal? Just to kill us? Orin was a schemer, a man of ledgers and long plots. "Ronan," I said urgently, "the palace explosion. Was there real damage or just fire and noise?" His face paled. We don't know. The report was just explosion. With the attack here, we have no details." "Find out now. Because if the palace wasn't really attacked, then the diversion served another purpose." The answer came too quickly. A scout on a lathered horse galloped into the ruins. "Your Majesties, the palace, it was smoke bombs, minor fires, no real damage. But during the evacuation, the royal treasury was breached. They stole documents, alliance treaties, military layouts, trade secrets, and," the man swallowed, "they took the crown jewels, the real ones, the sacred regalia." Kalen went still as stone. The crown jewels weren't just symbols. They were ancient magical artifacts tied to the bloodline of the Alpha King. In the wrong hands, they could be used to challenge his rule, to break pact bonds, to legitimize a usurper. "Who?" Kalen's voice was deadly quiet. "We don't know, but they knew the guard rotations, the vault combinations. It was an inside job." An inside job. The silenced court had pawns we hadn't rooted out. Orin looked up from where he was being chained, a bitter smile on his face. "You think you won. You cut off one head of the Hydra. The body is still very much alive, and now it has the teeth of your own crown." My blood ran cold. This wasn't over. The real mastermind was still free, and they had just stolen the very soul of the kingdom. And they had done it while we were busy fighting for our lives.
"Where is he?" Kalen demanded, his voice now glacial. "He hasn't been seen since the theft," Lyra said. Before we could plan, a young maidservant scurried into the room, wringing her hands. She curtsied deeply. "Forgive me, your majesties, but last night I was in the servants' passage near the linen stores. I heard Lord Alistair speaking to someone. I heard him say, once the false queen is eliminated, the path will be clear. He said the pretender would be dealt with. False queen, pretender. He meant me. The final piece of his hatred was not just for Kaelin's line, but for the common-born warrior who had dared to wear the crown. Kaelin's rage became a quiet, deadly thing. "Find him," he commanded. "Tear the kingdom apart." But Ilara, who had woken and listened with wide, sad eyes, spoke softly. "He's at the summer palace, Papa." We all turned to her. "The old pretty palace by the lake. He took me there once. He said it was where the real kings lived before this new palace was built. He said this place was just for show." The Summer Palace, the original seat of the Silvermane dynasty, abandoned for centuries. Of course, if Alistair wanted to crown himself or a puppet, he would want the legitimacy of the ancient throne room. "Then that's where we go," I said, rising. "We end this." Another explosion rocked the palace, this one closer, real. The east wing shuddered and screams echoed. It was another distraction. My head whipped to where Ilara had been sitting just a moment before. She was gone. In her place stood Lord Alistair. He held Ilara against him, one arm locking her small body, the other holding a wicked silver dagger to her throat. He looked older, stripped of his kindly mask, his eyes sharp and cold. "Hello, nephew," he said calmly, "and you, soldier queen. You are both remarkably hard to kill." "Let her go, Alistair," Kaelin said, his voice dropping to an alpha's lethal growl. "Your fight is with me." "My fight," Alistair sneered, "is with the weakness you let infect this kingdom, marrying that fragile Luna, producing one mewling heir, and now bonding with this common brawler. You have diluted our noble blood into mud. You are not fit to wear the crown your father left you. Ara was 10 times the wolf you will ever be, and Selene is worth 1,000 of you." "Sentiment," Alistair spat. "It was sentiment that made you weak. When Ara died so easily, I thought you would break. But you kept ruling, so I built my court. I waited, and now I have the heir, I have the regalia, and I have Prince Silas waiting at the summer palace to be crowned as my compliant king." He smiled. "Either this child becomes my puppet queen, or she joins her mother. Either way, your line ends today." He began backing toward the shattered doorway, Ilara a helpless shield. Her eyes met mine. They weren't just scared, they were asking. "Can you use your power?" I sent to her through our fledgling family bond. "I'm scared. What if I hurt everyone?" "You won't," I promised. "You are my daughter. You are in control. Trust your wolf." Her eyes began to glow with that familiar silver light. "Let me go," she said, the command pouring out. Alistair laughed, a dry, cruel sound. He tapped a simple iron band around his neck. Cold iron, the one metal that could nullify Luna power. A child's trick. I've been planning for years, girl. I am prepared for everything. What he wasn't prepared for was my speed. I didn't aim for him. I couldn't risk Ilara. My hand shot out, grabbing a heavy metal candlestick from a side table, and hurled it not at Alistair, but at the large, ornate chain above him. The chain snapped with a sharp ping. The massive crystal chandelier plummeted. Alistair had a split-second choice, be crushed or leap clear. He chose life, shoving Ilara aside as he dove away. "Run!" I screamed. Ilara scrambled straight into Ronan's arms. Alistair, enraged, shifted in midair, a grizzled, battle-scarred wolf with hate in his eyes. He landed and launched himself at me. We crashed together in a fury of teeth and claws. He was older but fresh and fueled by venomous spite. I was wounded, my strength sapped from the night's battles. He got his jaws into my already torn shoulder and bit down. I screamed as something tore, white-hot agony blinding me, but I didn't let go. I fought through it, my own fangs finding his foreleg, biting deep. We became a whirlwind of destruction crashing through furniture. Kaelin tried to reach us, but Alistair's loyalists, guards we didn't know returned, poured into the room engaging him and our warriors. The world narrowed to pain, and the wolf trying to kill me. My vision blurred. "Selene, you're dying." Kaelin's mental cry was frantic. "Disengage." "I can't," I sent back. "If I let go, he wins. He escapes. This ends with me."
Not without me, it doesn't. Through our bond, I felt a surge of power, not just emotional, but tangible. Kalen was pushing his alpha strength, his vitality down the mate bond to me. It was a desperate, dangerous gamble, draining him to fuel me. Warmth flooded my veins, pushing back the cold edge of death. My wounds knitted a fraction faster. New strength, his strength, burned in my muscles. Together, though fighting separate battles across the room, we were one. I finally got a killing grip on Alistair's throat. I could end it, bite down, finish the traitor who had murdered Ara, who had tried to murder our daughter, who had betrayed everything. But through the bond, I felt his hesitation. This was his uncle, his blood, the last living link to his father. Your choice, I sent to him, my jaws locked. He is your blood. I follow your lead. I felt the war inside him, love for the past, fury for the present. Then his resolve hardened, forged in grief. He killed Ara. He tried to kill our daughter. He is not family anymore. End it. My jaws closed. Alistair went limp. The remaining traitors, seeing their leader fall, surrendered. Silence, heavy and thick, fell over the ruined throne room. Then my legs gave out. I collapsed, the true cost of my injuries crashing down. The last thing I saw was Kalen's face above me, his expression shattered. "You don't dare die," he begged, clutching me. You promised you weren't going anywhere." I tried to smile. Still here, just so tired. As the darkness claimed me, my final thought was of Ilara's face, safe in Ronan's arms. We had won. Our family would survive. Everything else could wait. I surfaced from the darkness 3 days later. The first sensation was the warm, firm grip of a hand around my own. I opened my eyes to see Kalen asleep in a chair, his head bowed next to our joined hands on the bed. He looked exhausted, his face etched with lines of worry even in sleep. Through the bond, I felt the echo of his terror, his vigil, his overwhelming relief that I still breathed. "Hey," I whispered, my voice a dry croak. He woke instantly, his steel blue eyes flying open, filling with a light so intense that it chased away the shadows in the room. "Celine," he breathed, the word a sigh of pure gratitude. He brought my hand to his lips. "You've been gone for 3 days. The healers, they said it was close." "But I'm here," I said, squeezing his hand weakly. "We won. Alistair is gone. Ilara is safe." "You matter," he said fiercely. "Celine, you cannot keep doing this, throwing yourself into death's path. I need you. Ilara needs you. This kingdom needs its Luna." "I'm sorry I scared you," I said softly. "But Kalen, I can't promise I'll stop protecting our family. It's who I am."
"We need a new council," I said to Kalen one evening as we reviewed documents. "Not just nobles by birth, warriors who have proven loyalty, scholars from the universities, merchant leaders who understand trade, people who know the lives our citizens actually live." "Radical," he said, but his eyes sparkled. "I know," he said, pressing his forehead to mine, "and I love you for it. But you're not just a warrior anymore. You are my heart. You are Ilara's mother. You are queen. You have a life to live, not just battles to fight." "I'm still learning how to balance it all," I admitted. "The warrior, the queen, the mate, the mother. Sometimes I don't know which part to be." "Be Celine," he suggested gently. "All of them, at once. You don't have to choose." The door creaked open and Ilara peered in. Seeing me awake, her face lit up like the dawn. She hurried to the bed, climbing up carefully to hug me. "Mama, you're back." "I'm back, little star." I held her close, breathing in her scent, the tangible proof of our victory. Later, after Ilara had been persuaded to go and play, Kalen and I faced the aftermath. Ronan brought the final report. The silenced court was dismantled, its assets seized, but one piece was missing. "Prince Silas," Ronan said. "Alistair's proposed puppet king. He's vanished. We tracked him to the summer palace as Ilara guessed. He was there with the crown regalia, but by the time our forces arrived, he was gone." My heart sank.
Silas, Kaelin's younger brother, the prince who had left court after Ara's death, consumed by a grief he couldn't bear near his brother. He left the regalia behind, Ronan continued, placing the ancient, gleaming crown and scepter on a table. And this, he handed Kaelin a folded note. Kaelin opened it, his eyes scanning the words. His face moved through a landscape of emotions: pain, anger, sorrow, and finally a weary understanding. He read it aloud, his voice low. "Brother, by the time you find this, you will know of Alistair's treachery. Know that I was never part of it willingly. He came to me 2 years ago, drowning in my grief. He told me you were responsible for Ara's death, that your negligence had killed her. I believed him. The grief and rage consumed me. I agreed to be his figurehead, thinking I was avenging her. But when I learned the truth, that Alistair himself ordered her death to break you, I could not go through with it. I am leaving the regalia. I am disappearing. I cannot face you. I cannot face what my blindness almost cost you, and Ilara, and your new queen. I am sorry. Forgive me if you can. Silas." The room was silent. The pain radiating from Kaelin was a physical ache in my own chest. "He was manipulated," I said softly. "Grieving and vulnerable. Alistair poisoned his heart." "He still betrayed me," Kaelin said, but the anger was gone, replaced with deep sorrow. "He still agreed to usurp my throne. But he chose to walk away. When he saw the truth, he left the crown and fled rather than become a tool for more death. That has to mean something." I took his hand. "Kaelin, you almost drowned in grief after Ara died. You pulled away from Ilara, from your duties. You didn't mean to. Grief is a tyrant. Silas was the same. Alistair weaponized his love for Ara against you both. Through our bond, he felt my compassion, my understanding that people could be both victims and perpetrators of their own tragedies." "You suggest I pardon him?" he asked. "I suggest you leave a door open. Issue a decree. Prince Silas is offered amnesty if he returns within 1 year, swears fealty before the council, and accepts exile from court life. If he does not return, then he is declared exiled forever. Give him the choice." "That is merciful, for a warrior." A Ronan observed, "Warriors understand that sometimes the strongest move is to offer a hand, not a blade. And as queen, I must think of healing, not just punishment." Kaelin looked at me, and through the bond, his pride was a warm glow. "You have become quite the stateswoman," he said. "I'm learning, though I still prefer a clean sword strike to a convoluted treaty." The decree was issued. The kingdom began the long process of healing. With Alistair's conspiracy crushed, trust needed to be rebuilt. The noble houses implicated left voids in the council. "We need a new council," I said to Kaelin one evening as we reviewed documents. "Not just nobles by birth, warriors who have proven loyalty, scholars from the universities, merchant leaders who understand trade, people who know the lives our citizens actually live." "Radical," he said, but his eyes sparkled. "I know," he said, pressing his forehead to mine. "And I love you for it. But you're not just a warrior anymore. You are my heart. You are Ilara's mother. You are queen. You have a life to live, not just battles to fight." "I'm still learning how to balance it all," I admitted. "The warrior, the queen, the mate, the mother. Sometimes I don't know which part to be." "Be Selene," he suggested gently. "All of them, at once. You don't have to choose." The door creaked open and Ilara peered in. Seeing me awake, her face lit up like the dawn. She hurried to the bed, climbing up carefully to hug me. "Mama, you're back." "I'm back, little star." I held her close, breathing in her scent, the tangible proof of our victory. Later, after Ilara had been persuaded to go and play, Kaelin and I faced the aftermath. Ronan brought the final report.
The silenced court was dismantled, its assets seized, but one piece was missing. Prince Silas, Ronan said. Alistair's proposed puppet king. He's vanished. We tracked him to the Summer Palace as Ilara guessed. He was there with the crown regalia, but by the time our forces arrived, he was gone. My heart sank. Silas, Kaelin's younger brother, the prince who had left court after Ara's death, consumed by a grief he couldn't bear near his brother. He left the regalia behind, Ronan continued, placing the ancient, gleaming crown and scepter on a table. And this. He handed Kaelin a folded note. Kaelin opened it, his eyes scanning the words. His face moved through a landscape of emotions. Pain, anger, sorrow, and finally a weary understanding. He read it aloud, his voice low. Brother, by the time you find this, you will know of Alistair's treachery. Know that I was never part of it willingly. He came to me 2 years ago, drowning in my grief. He told me you were responsible for Ara's death, that your negligence had killed her. I believed him. The grief and rage consumed me. I agreed to be his figurehead, thinking I was avenging her. But when I learned the truth, that Alistair himself ordered her death to break you, I could not go through with it. I am leaving the regalia. I am disappearing. I cannot face you. I cannot face what my blindness almost cost you, and Ilara, and your new queen. I am sorry. Forgive me if you can. Silas. The room was silent. The pain radiating from Kaelin was a physical ache in my own chest. He was manipulated, I said softly, grieving and vulnerable. Alistair poisoned his heart. He still betrayed me, Kaelin said, but the anger was gone, replaced with deep sorrow. He still agreed to usurp my throne. But he chose to walk away. When he saw the truth, he left the crown and fled rather than become a tool for more death. That has to mean something. I took his hand. Kaelin, you almost drowned in grief after Ara died. You pulled away from Ilara, from your duties. You didn't mean to. Grief is a tyrant. Silas was the same. Alistair weaponized his love for Ara against you both. Through our bond, he felt my compassion, my understanding that people could be both victims and perpetrators of their own tragedies. You suggest I pardon him? He asked. I suggest you leave a door open. Issue a decree. Prince Silas is offered amnesty if he returns within 1 year, swears fealty before the council, and accepts exile from court life. If he does not return, then he is declared exiled forever. Give him the choice. That is merciful for a warrior. A Ronan observed, warriors understand that sometimes the strongest move is to offer a hand, not a blade, and as queen, I must think of healing, not just punishment. Kaelin looked at me, and through the bond, his pride was a warm glow. You have become quite the stateswoman, he said. I'm learning, though I still prefer a clean sword strike to a convoluted treaty. The decree was issued. The kingdom began the long process of healing. With Alistair's conspiracy crushed, trust needed to be rebuilt. The noble houses implicated left voids in the council.
Queen Celine's heroics saved our heir and secured our kingdom, Kaelin said, his tone cool. Her bloodline is one of courage and sacrifice. We find that the strongest alliance of all. Of course, Zarek said, his smile not reaching his eyes. But tell me, Your Majesty, he turned his gaze directly to me, do you not miss the simplicity of a soldier's life? Politics must be so messy compared to the clean lines of combat. Every eye was on me. This was a test. I set down my fork. Combat and politics are not so different, Emperor. Both require strategy, the reading of opponents, knowing when to press an advantage and when to feign weakness. I find my previous training invaluable. A flicker of something, perhaps interest, crossed his impassive face. Perhaps we should test that theory, he said. I would be honored to see a demonstration of your famed skills.
A friendly spar between my champion and one of your warriors tomorrow morning. A cultural exchange. The trap was set. Refusal showed fear. Acceptance risked humiliation or worse. We would be delighted, I said before Kalen could speak. Shall we say at dawn? Our training grounds are at your disposal. Excellent, Zarek said. I will send my champion. Unless, he paused a calculated hesitation, unless you would care to face him yourself, Your Majesty. I am sure it would be most educational. The challenge hung in the air. If I refused, I was weak. If I lost, our nation was shamed. If I won, I insulted a brutal emperor on our soil. I accept, I said, a sharp smile on my lips. But let us make it meaningful. If your champion wins, the unified territories will grant the Bloodfang Empire preferential trade rights at our northern ports for 5 years. If I win, your empire grants us the same at your southern ports. And if you are injured, Zarek asked, a cold glint in his eye, sparring can be unpredictable. Then you will have proven we are weak enough to be challenged, I said bluntly, meeting his gaze without flinching. But Emperor Zarek, I would not count on that. I am notoriously difficult to injure. Many have tried. The dining hall fell silent. I had just acknowledged killing people to the most powerful wolf in the world. It was not diplomacy. It was a declaration. Dawn, then, Zarek said, his smile now genuine and therefore more dangerous. That night, Kalen paced in our chambers. You cannot do this. His champion will be a killer. This is not Garvin on a coronation day. This is for keeps. Everything is for keeps, I said, sharpening my blades with calm, steady strokes. If he thinks we're weak, he'll invade within the year. A show of strength is our only deterrent. And if you're hurt, then we fight a war we were going to fight anyway, but at least we fight it having shown our people and his that we do not bow. I stood and went to him, placing my hands on his chest. Trust me. He pulled me close, his forehead against mine. I do, but Celine, come back to me. The training grounds at dawn were packed. Word had spread. Zarek's champion was introduced. Warlock, a warrior whose body was a map of scars, whose eyes held no light, only a calculating deadliness. He was a head taller than me, his muscles coiled like springs. Your Majesty, he said, his voice a gravelly monotone, I will try not to damage you too severely. How thoughtful. I will attempt to return the courtesy. We shifted. My silver wolf faced his brutish iron-gray beast. He didn't charge. He stalked, intelligent, looking for openings. This was no brawler. This was a professional killer. Our first clash was a blur of snapping teeth and raking claws. I scored a line on his shoulder. He landed a heavy blow to my ribs that stole my breath. We circled. He was stronger, but I was faster. He fought with cold efficiency. I fought with the adaptive instincts of a survivor. The crowd was silent, holding its breath. He lunged, a feint, then twisted with shocking speed, his jaws aiming for my hind leg. I leapt, twisting in the air, and came down on his back, my teeth finding the scruff of his neck. It wasn't a killing hold, but a dominant one. He froze. I could feel the tension in his massive body, the humiliation of being pinned by a smaller, female wolf in front of his emperor. Yield, I sent. He hesitated, his pride warring with his orders. Yield, or I will break your neck and give your emperor the war he clearly wants. My mental voice was ice. He went limp. I yield. I released him and shifted back. The silence was absolute. Then our people erupted in cheers. I looked to Zarek. His glacial face was unreadable. Then, slowly, he began to clap. A slow, deliberate sound. You are extraordinary, Queen Celine. I came to expect to find a wounded kingdom, easy prey. Instead, I find a Luna who fights like a general and speaks like a queen. You have my respect. Does that mean the Bloodfang Empire will consider alliance over conflict? I asked, wiping blood from my lip. It means I will consider it. You have proven your strength. Now we shall see if you can negotiate as skillfully as you fight. The real battle, it seemed, was just beginning, not with claws, but with words, and the fate of 2 nations would hang on every one. The negotiations with Emperor Zarek were not for the faint of heart. He was shrewd, ruthless, and valued blunt strength over flowery diplomacy, a trait that, ironically, worked in my favor. Over 3 long days, we hammered out the framework for a pact. It was grueling, each concession fought for, each advantage fiercely debated. On the final evening, in a private solar, Zarek looked at me across a map strewn with treaties. "You are not what I expected," he admitted, sipping his wine. "Most queens are ornaments. You are a cornerstone. It is refreshing. Most queens are what their world allows them to be. I am fortunate to have a mate who sees me as his equal." "Let you?" Zarek raised a silver eyebrow. "I do not think the Alpha King lets you do anything. I think you do it and dare him to stop you." I smiled. "That too." "I have a proposition," he said, setting his goblet down. "And formal alliance. The Bloodfang Empire and the Unified Territories. Mutual defense, open trade, shared intelligence. We're the 2 strongest nations on the continent. Together, we would be unassailable. An age of peace enforced by our combined strength." "What is the condition?" I asked, my guard still up. "No condition," he said, "except that I expect to treat with you directly, not through intermediaries. You, Queen Selene, as the primary voice for this alliance, because you are the one who is honest, you are the one who follows through." It was a staggering offer, and a massive responsibility. I would need to discuss this with my king. "Of course," he said, "but know this, you have changed my perception of your kingdom. I came to exploit weakness. You have convinced me that alliance is the wiser course. That is extraordinary statecraft."
I found Kalen on the balcony, watching the sunset. I told him of Zarek's offer. "He wants me to be the primary liaison. Is that acceptable? I don't wish to overstep." "Overstep?" Kalen looked at me with such open pride it took my breath away. "Selene, you just secured an alliance with the Bloodfang Empire, a feat that has eluded us for 50 years. You demonstrated our strength, negotiated from a position of power, and earned the respect of the most dangerous alpha in the world. You are not overstepping. You are being the queen we need, our partner, my equal." The formal alliance was signed at noon the next day in the grand courtyard before both our peoples. "To a new era," Zarek toasted, "and to Queen Selene, who proves that true power is born not just of blood, but of will." As his black ship sailed away, a tangible peace settled over the palace. We stood on the balcony, Kalen's arms around me. Ilara was below in the gardens, teaching her little sister, Kira, an orphaned pup we had adopted months ago, how to do cartwheels. Our son, Leo, toddled after them, laughing. "I took 4 arrows for her," I said softly, leaning back against Kalen. "And it led here, to this family, this peace, this life." "No regrets?" he murmured into my hair. "Not a single one," I said firmly. "Every arrow, every scar, every moment of fear, it was worth it. For this." 5 years later, that peace had flourished. Trade with the Bloodfang Empire had brought unprecedented prosperity. Our merit-based council had revolutionized governance, inspiring other regions. Our family had grown, not just in numbers, but in love and joy. But one afternoon, a humble delegation arrived from the remote southern clans. Their spokesperson was a young woman, an Omega named Maya, with hopeful, desperate eyes. "Your Majesty," she said, bowing low before me, "I represent the Omega Union of the Southern Clans. We have heard your story, how a warrior became queen, how you changed the laws. We were hoping you could help us, convince our alphas that Omegas can be more than caretakers, that we can be warriors and leaders too." I saw myself in her eyes, the yearning to prove her worth, to break the chains of expectation. I knelt before her, taking her hands. "I will do more than convince them," I said.
I will show them. We will start an exchange. Your Omegas will come here, train in our guard, learn statecraft. Then you return home and show your people what you can do. Actions speak louder than words. But our alphas might see it as interference. I smiled, a real, fierce smile. Let them. I've faced assassins, traitors, and emperors. A few traditional alphas do not frighten me. I looked at Kalen, his support unwavering, and the Alpha King stands with me. Anyone with objections can take it up with either of us. A new, familiar voice boomed from the entrance. Emperor Zarek, on a scheduled diplomatic visit, strode in. The Bloodfang Empire would be proud to co-sponsor this Omega initiative. Between our two nations, I would like to see which Southern Alpha is foolish enough to object. The Omega Union program began. Hope, like a fragile but determined seedling, was planted in the South. It was a new kind of battle, a battle for hearts and minds. And as I watched Maya's face light up with possibility, I knew it was a battle worth fighting. That night, under a full moon, our family gathered in the gardens. Alara, now a confident young lady with controlled, powerful grace, demonstrated a new fighting form to Kira. Leo, now a boisterous 6-year-old, pretending to fight dragons with a stick. Kalen held our youngest, a baby girl named Hope, in his arms. I looked at them, my family, my heart, my reason for every breath, and then out over the peaceful, prosperous kingdom we had built together. The warrior who took 4 arrows had not just saved a princess, she had, step by painful step, built a legacy of strength that protected, of love that healed, of a crown that was earned, not given. And as Kalen's hand found mine, our mate bond humming with a contented, deep love, I knew with absolute certainty I would take those arrows again, 1,000 times over. For this, for them, for us. The seasons turned, painting the kingdom in the vibrant gold of autumn. The Omega Union program was thriving, with the first group of Southern Omegas returning home, not just with skills, but with a new fire in their eyes. Reports trickled in of the first Omega appointed as a border captain in the Southern clans, a small revolution that filled my heart with quiet pride. Peace had become a melody we were learning to hum. Our children grew under its gentle tune. Alara, at 10, was a blend of thoughtful grace and surprising strength, her Luna power a well-tuned instrument she practiced with focused dedication. Kira, our adopted daughter of 6, was a whirlwind of laughter and fierce loyalty, already declaring she would lead the Royal Guard one day. Little Leo, at 4, was all boundless curiosity and his father's stubborn chin, and baby Hope, just taking her first wobbly steps, was the joy that lit up every corner of the palace. Yet, through the calm, a quiet, unresolved note lingered. The decree for Prince Silas, the 1-year mark for his amnesty, was a week away. The council had begun to murmur, preparing for the formal declaration of his permanent exile. Kalen never spoke of it, but through our bond I felt the dull, persistent ache of that loss, the brother-shaped hole in his life. I found him in his study on a crisp evening, staring not at state documents, but at an old, faded painting of 2 young boys, him and Silas, grinning with arms slung over each other's shoulders. "He's not coming back," Kalen said quietly, not turning. "A year was too long. He's made his choice." I rested my hands on his shoulders. "There's still a week." "And if he does?" Kalen asked, the vulnerability in his voice stark. "How do I look at him, knowing he believed I could kill Era? How does he look at me, knowing I sentenced our uncle to death?" "You look at him as your brother," I said softly, "and you take it one day at a time. Forgiveness is a path, not a destination." The week passed in a strange, suspended silence. On the final day, as the sun began to set, a solitary rider approached the palace gates. He was cloaked and hooded, his horse lean from long travel. The guards tensed, but something about his weary posture held no threat. Ronan came to us in the family solar, his expression unreadable.
"Your Majesties, a man is at the gate. He asks for audience under the amnesty decree. He will not give his name."
Kaelin and I exchanged a look. My heart clenched. We walked to the main courtyard together, hands linked. The children, sensing the gravity, stayed inside with their nanny. The man stood in the fading light, his cloak dusty. As we approached, he slowly pushed back his hood. It was Silas. But it was not the vibrant, grieving prince I remembered from portraits. This man was thinner, weathered, his eyes holding a world of pain and hard-won peace. He looked years older than Kaelin, not younger. His gaze went first to his brother, and the flood of emotion there, shame, sorrow, a desperate hope, was so raw it stole my breath. He dropped to one knee, bowing his head deeply, not as a prince to a king, but as a penitent to his judge. "Your Majesty," Silas said, his voice rough from disuse, "I have come to answer the decree." Kaelin stood frozen, a statue carved from conflicting emotions. I squeezed his hand, sending a pulse of strength through our bond. "Stand, Silas," Kaelin finally said, his own voice thick. Silas rose, his eyes flickering to me briefly, with respect, then back to his brother. "I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. I allowed my grief to be weaponized against you. I agreed to a plot that would have destroyed everything you love. For that, there is no excuse." I took a deep, shuddering breath. I have spent this year wandering, working in remote villages, healing where I could, trying to understand the people I almost helped betray. I do not seek my title, my place at court, or your trust. I seek only to fulfill the decree, to swear fealty before the council, and then to accept permanent exile, knowing I have at least done this one thing right. The silence stretched. I watched Kaelin's face, saw the war between the betrayed king and the loving brother. Then he took a step forward. "Exile," Kaelin said, his voice breaking. "You think after losing you once to grief and again to treachery, I would let you walk away now that you've finally come home?" Silas's head jerked up, confusion and disbelief in his eyes. "You were my brother before you were a traitor, and you are still my brother." He placed his hands on Silas's shoulders. The decree offered amnesty for a return and an oath. It said nothing of exile. Your exile, Silas, is over. Your home is here. The dam broke. Silas's composure shattered, and a single tear traced a path through the dust on his cheek. He didn't embrace Kaelin. The gulf was still too wide for that. But he bowed his head again, this time in overwhelmed gratitude. "I will swear the oath, and I will spend every day of my life proving worthy of this mercy." The council session the next morning was tense. Silas stood before them, straight and solemn, and swore a binding oath of loyalty to the crown, to the kingdom, and to the Alpha King and his Luna. It was a powerful, quiet moment. Afterward, Kaelin did not restore Silas's royal privileges. Instead, he gave him a new role, royal liaison to the borderlands and remote pacts. "You say you learned about our people this past year. Go and serve them. Be my eyes and ears, and your own man. Earn their trust as you must earn back mine." It was a path to redemption, not a pardon. It was perfect. That night, for the first time in years, the brothers sat together in the garden, talking not of the past but of the future, of irrigation issues in the West, of new trade routes. The conversation was stilted, careful, but it was a beginning. A fragile, hopeful root taking hold in scorched earth. As I watched from a window, Alara slipped her hand into mine. "Mama, is Uncle Silas a good man now?" I looked down at her wise eyes. "He is a man who did a very bad thing because he was hurt and lost. Now he is trying to find his way back to being good. That journey is brave too." She nodded thoughtfully. "Like when Kira has a bad dream and gets scared, but then she's brave again in the morning." "Exactly like that," I said, pulling her close.
The family was whole. The last wound was beginning to scar over. But as I looked up at the starry sky, a different kind of whisper touched my senses, not of political threats, but of the earth itself. A whisper carried by the wind from the northern borders, where the mountains met the eternal ice. A whisper of a chill that had nothing to do with the coming winter.
It was Eldra, the healer, now white-haired but sharp-eyed, who brought us the old scrolls. "It is not an attack," she said, her finger tracing archaic runes. "It is a sickness, a fading. The natural magic of the land, the spirit that feeds our wolves and grows our crops, is weakening. The texts call it the world's sigh. It happens not from malice, but from imbalance, from too much taking and not enough healing. A different kind of battle, one we could not fight with swords or treaties. We called a great moot, a gathering of alphas, elders, healers, and wise ones from every corner of the land, and even our allies. Emperor Zarek sent his chief mystic. For days the palace buzzed with debate, theory, and fear. It was Alara who, listening quietly from her seat beside me, spoke into a lull. "The land is like a heart," she said, her young voice clear. "It gives and gives, but if it is only ever asked to give, it grows tired. It needs to feel love back, not just be taken from." The room fell silent, considering the simple, profound truth from a child, a Luna child. A plan formed, not from a single leader, but from the collective wisdom of the moot. It was not a war plan, but a healing ritual, a great synchronized howl under the next full moon, not of dominance, but of gratitude. A pledge from every pack to dedicate a portion of their land as a forever wild sanctuary, untouched. A promise to plant 10 trees for everyone cut, to clean the rivers, to give back. The night of the full moon, we stood not on a palace balcony, but on the sacred hill of promises, where the first Alpha King had been crowned. Below us, in the moonlit valley, thousands of wolves from every pack and territory had gathered, a sea of fur and silent expectation. Our family stood together in human form, hands linked. Kaylin and I, Alara, Kira, Leo, and Hope held in my arms. Silas stood just beside Kaylin, shoulder to shoulder. As the moon reached its zenith, Kaylin lifted his head and began the howl. It was not a roar of power, but a deep, resonant note of thanks for the sun, the rain, the soil, the prey, for the land that sustained us. I joined my voice to his, a harmony of strength and protection. Then Alara added her voice, and it was like pure silver light given sound, weaving through ours, amplifying it and carrying the emotion of love and promise. Kira's howl was bright and fierce, Leo's was earnest and clear, and even little Hope let out a small, sincere chirp. One by one, from the valley below, thousands of howls rose to meet ours, a symphony of gratitude from the entire kingdom, washing over the land like a visible wave of soft, moon-drenched light. We felt it then, a shiver in the earth beneath our feet, not of fear, but of relief, a deep, contented sigh. The next morning, messengers reported the frost in the north had receded. In the Glimmerwood, the hum had returned, stronger than before. The world's sigh had been answered. Years flowed into decades. The sanctuary lands thrived, becoming places of breathtaking beauty and restored magic. Our children grew into the leaders they were meant to be. On the day of Alara's coronation as Alpha Queen, with Kaylin and I stepping gracefully to the roles of elder guides, I stood dressed not in warrior leathers, but in a gown of deep blue, the sword and crown pendant Kaylin gave me gleaming at my throat. My hair was silver now, mingled with the gold. Kaylin's hand in mine was weathered but strong. We watched as Kaylin placed the crown on our daughter's head. She looked out over the kingdom, her gaze finding Kira,
now captain of the royal guard, standing proud and sharp-eyed. Finding Leo, his genius for logistics making him a master of trade. Finding Hope, a renowned healer like Eldra. Her gaze found Silas, her beloved uncle, his face proud and tear-streaked. Finally, her eyes found ours, filled with love and the steady confidence we had helped her build. That evening, Kaylin and I walked in our private garden, the same one where a king and a guard had once tentatively begun to build a life. "You know," Kaylin said, his voice warm with memory, "when you took those arrows, I thought you were watching the bravest thing I would ever see. I was wrong. Watching you build this legacy of light, that was braver. That was forever." I leaned into him, the mate bond between us a quiet, eternal hum of contentment. We built it together, every step. I looked up at the palace, glowing with celebration. The warrior saved a princess. The king saved the warrior. And together, we saved a kingdom. We built a family. We changed a world. He kissed my forehead, a promise kept across a lifetime. "You know, we did it all without a single kiss," he murmured, his eyes twinkling with the old, familiar humor. I laughed, the sound easy and free. Our love didn't need that. It was in every protected flank, every shared burden, every quiet moment watching our children sleep. It was in the choice, every single day, to stand together. And as the stars emerged over a peaceful, thriving kingdom, I knew the story wasn't ending. It was being passed on, like a well-tended flame. The warrior queen's tale was complete, but the legacy of the family she built, the love that forged a new world, would echo forever. A story that began with 4 arrows, ended with a kingdom bathed in light, a family unbroken, and a love that truly changed everything.